see, this is one of the toilets. Remember how we discussed the toilets? 3-inch pipe, 1.5 inch, 2 inch PVC vent line coming up so that it can put air behind those drain lines to allow water to flow freely. Come again, we'll see over here. Looks like we have one of our little boxes set up to move the plumbing around for the shower. It needs to be replaced. We'll get the plumbers back out, ground plumbers back out to fix that. See, part of this is being done with machines, but then there's still a part of this that has to be done by hand. So this is a very labor-intensive process. Very labor-intensive. Small machinery. All of this small equipment being used, break up the ground, and then manpower to come in and make the fine detail lines that we need to make sure we have the right size footage. All right, as you can tell, the foundation company has come out. They've come in and finished cutting all of the pads for the footers, and also install all of the post-tension cables. So this is going to be a post-tension slab. So there are three types of houses that you'll typically see. You'll see a pier and beam house. Those are a lot of the old school houses that sit up on center blocks. The floor is made out of wood. Typically you can tell those because if you remember going to some of the older houses back in the day, when you walk through the house, you can hear footsteps through the house, through the floors. That's because that house is up off of the foundation. It's up off of the ground, and all of the plumbing and everything is working under the house. Another type of foundation is the concrete slab foundation. And inside of that, there are two different types of foundation that are used. One is called rebar. One of the things you'll see is that they'll come in and they'll make a foundation and they'll fill that foundation up with rebar. That rebar is used and laid out at a certain distance, tied together, a certain thickness of rebar that will make the foundation strong enough to support the house that's going to be built on top of it. So what you see here is, this is the post-tension cables. So these post-tension cables will be set. Once all these are set, the foundation company will come back, they'll have everything set. We'll come out and pour concrete. Once all of the concrete is poured, we will then, I guess 7 or so days after the concrete is cured, foundation company will come out and they will connect to these cables and they will pull tension on these cables. And so these cables, once they pull tension on them, as you can see, there's one cable right here. You can kind of see the end of it where they'll connect to it. There's another cable right here. And you'll see that that little piece of cable will stick out of the concrete that's poured. And what will happen is they'll come and pull tension on all of these cables to strengthen and secure the foundation. One of the things that we've also done with this is we actually made sure that we had the electricians come out. And so one thing the electricians did was came out and actually made sure the electricians and the plumbers that we dig all of the trenches that are needed to run the electrical and plumbing. So while we're out here digging trenches, digging footers, we went ahead and dug all of the trenches we need to run the main electrical and also the main water, plumbing, and sewer. Well, not sewer, right? Because this system will be on a septic tank. I've talked about a septic tank in some of my previous videos. But yeah, we'll have a septic tank on this system as well. Same aerobic septic system that will go out and spray into the yard at certain times of the day once the tank fills up and the water is treated. So as that goes in, we'll show you some more updates. All right. All right, as you can see, the post-tension cables have been installed. And you see all of the little spacers that are installed to hold these cables up and in place while the concrete is getting poured. And so what will happen is once the concrete gets poured, this takes these spacers up off of these cables, up off of the plastic, and allows concrete to flow around them so that Once they pour this foundation, those cables will be completely encapsulated in concrete. Now, as you look around, you'll see all of the plastic membranes. You'll see right here, this is a wall that's been put up. This wall is actually the outline for the back porch. So if you look at it, you'll see that what will happen is that once this concrete is poured, we have two different heights of concrete. So you have one height for the inside of the house, and then over here, this concrete will be at a different height for the back porch. So if you ever pay attention to a lot of your back porches in your house, you'll notice that inside you always have to step up to get into the house. And this is why, because once the concrete is poured, it will, if you notice, the walls of the back porch aren't as high in a lot of areas, right? And so it'll come over and it'll meet up with this wall, and so that'll have the concrete at a slightly different height than the concrete that's on the interior of the house. One of the things you'll notice also is that we have these metal straps inside here. These metal straps are your hurricane ties. These straps will be placed inside the concrete foundation, and what will happen is once those straps are placed in and the concrete is cured, that'll be secured to the framing of the house. That is what gives your house its hurricane rating and high winds. You know, recently we just had Hurricane Ida, so those are some of the safety features that are put into new homes to keep them secured and moored to the ground. One of the things you'll notice is these little gray conduit that's coming up. So what you'll see is this conduit comes up, it goes down, and then it comes back up. And so the purpose of this conduit is that, quite frankly, it's for an island. That is what you use to get electricity from a wall over to an island. So for instance, this will more than likely probably be a wall of some sort that's framed up, and the electricians will be able to put electrical cables down in there, send the cable through the foundation over to the island, and that's how you get power for your dishwashers, cooktops, anything, the plugs that charge your cell phones, anything that you have that requires power on the island. That's how you'll get to it. One of the other things you'll notice here is these gray receptacles with yellow tops. So these gray receptacles with yellow tops are ground or floor plugs. So sometimes you'll go into people's houses and you'll see that they have plugs in the floor. The way to get those things into the floor is to put them in before you pour the foundation. That's something that's very important to do, because if you want to add floor plugs after the foundation is poured, then that'll require you coming in and busting up a bunch of concrete, right? So as you can see in this particular house, this is a post-tension slab. So you don't want to go and just start tearing up concrete, because if you go and you start tearing up any concrete and you damage one of these cables, your slab is done. I mean, might as well tear it up and start over, right? So you want to make sure that any of these things that needs to be done inside of the foundation is done before it's poured. And again, what you'll see is we have one floor plug, we have conduit that goes over to a second floor plug, which then comes over and comes up inside of a conduit that will be inside of a wall. And so this conduit will carry the electricity over to the floor plugs. And again, if we look around, we have a second set of floor plugs that's in the house. All of these things are typically laid out on the plans, so we use the plans to determine where those plugs are supposed to go and make sure that they get put in place. This particular house is going to be is majority stucco. So one of the things that you'll notice in this foundation that you don't see is a brick ledge. And so a brick ledge, and I'll show you in some other videos, but a brick ledge actually is a little 4-foot wide section of concrete that is typically put on the foundation so that you can install brick around the house. Contrary to what some people may think, brick cannot just sit on the dirt, cannot just sit on the ground. So one of the things that has to be taken into consideration when we're doing the foundation is that we have to have a brick ledge there so that we can install brick. Once the house is framed and wrapped and the windows installed, then we begin installing brick once the house is dried in. So notice this, typically what you'll see is there'll be, even though this section right here is just flat wall, what you would typically see is coming right off the top of here. See if I can get down here and show you. So coming right off the top of this section would be another board. That board would be roughly about 4 to 6 inches long, which will give you a flat section around the entire foundation to install brick. That will give you your brick ledge. Since this house is going to be stucco, we don't need a brick ledge. So we're going to pour foundation right up to the end, and then we're going to frame right on top of it.